Hi Gina.
Hi Ione, hi everyone, I'm Gina, the senior editor of Polyester.
And I'm Ione, the founding editor-in-chief of Polyester, and this is the Polyester Podcast, a feminist pop culture podcast dissecting the discourse on a weekly basis.
Before we start, we've just relaunched our membership platform to include loads of new perks, including exclusive podcast-centred ones. We're now offering exclusive video episodes, secret mini episodes, and even episodes centred on what you want us to talk about across different tier options. Go check it out at the link in our description. And if you haven't yet, please make sure to like, rate, subscribe and review. Do we have any reviews, Ione?
We do. This is 5 stars from Shona232 in the UK. Would highly recommend. I love how Gina and Ione take pop culture topics, often seen as superfluous. Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay. But contextualise them as influential to the wider political landscape. Although I don't always agree with everything they say, it's great to have my opinions challenged by such eloquent hosts. Thank you.
Oh, that's beautiful.
That is lovely.
Thank you.
And then Spotify, Laura Mosley says, should be compulsory listening. Tick emoji. Thank you for covering this and as always being passionate and honest. And then, oh, there's no way. FCPQ, capital TX, lowercase r, 123 says, thank you. Wonderful app. I was also thinking while reading discourse how much people are focusing on the boys as a reaction to what they perceive to be feminist wins, to be honest. This is about our adolescence episode. Like they think feminists have had their time and now it's time to talk about the boys in a way which appears feminist at first. We literally see the dad cry more than we see the poor girl who was killed. And yet I want boys to be cared for, but I don't pretend that misogyny is something which is done to someone without consent.
Exactly.
Talent.
Thank you. I love the discourse when people chime in with their own bits.
In the comments section.
Yeah, especially the Spotify ones. People get really deep in there.
Yeah, it's true. So today we're talking about some Twitter discourse.
Yes, you said you were awake at like 2 a.m. just getting deep into it.
Yeah, I haven't been sleeping at all this week. But I feel like it's just something that comes back around all the time, like every couple of weeks, basically. Not weeks, maybe a couple of months. But it's like growing in sentiment. And I also feel like just by watching telly and stuff, like we've obviously spoken about tradwives before, but the just like normalization of tradwives as like the same sort of thing as Tomato Girl in terms of trends and like divorcing it from politics rather than talking about it as like obviously right-wing ideology. So we're not talking just about tradwives, but we're talking about like the sentiment of being too pretty for a job or too hot to work or like too nice to do maths is what I was going to say.
I'm too nice to do maths today.
No, I'm too nice to do maths today. So this Twitter user called Plastic Dyke Band tweeted basically what are 2 t-shirts that look like they're being sold on Urban Outfitters or something similar that are both like baby tees. One says too pretty for a job and one says too hot to work. And the tweet reads, going to the mall and seeing shirts like this being sold for teenage girls in a time when right-wing ideologies are spreading fast and women's rights are being taken away, and yet when you bitch about it, you're being called too woke. And this was in quote tweet to friend of the pod, Ashley Reese, tweeting, let me try and find the original tweet. Oh, okay. So it was, I don't know what the original tweet was, fine, but that quote tweet was, it's like quote tweet inception. So Ashley Reese says, like, sorry, you're a fucking loser. This shit isn't funny anymore, especially when men are literally nodding and going, yeah, you're right. Financial independence is so important. And that is a quote tweet from Claire at CIAIRER saying, I'm too pretty to have to use Microsoft Excel. This is who you're asking to work 40 hours a week. And it's a gif of Kristen Bell. Is that her name?
Yeah, I don't think it's from The Good Place. It's from that program you love.
The sexy rabbi one?
Yeah.
Yeah. Saying, oh, shut up.
That's exactly how she would have said it as well.
And so then everyone went, everyone was just chiming in, chit-chatting. James Clark, who seems to be some sort of right-wing grifter, tweeted a few days before that, still kind of blows my mind that women fought for their right to experience this. And it's like miserable Severance-esque office space. And obviously everyone was going off about that. Cathedral Sear at Jasmine Galtex said, you people are so fucking stupid and disingenuous and I'm grateful every day that I'll never have to depend on you for shit. And then Meg At _nomadic_soul says, the idea that women haven't worked for a millennia is so silly, and if our ancestors could only see these comfy chairs and air-conditioned offices and this man complaining, I wonder what they would say.
Exactly.
So it's like, what do you think, Gina?
Well, I just thought it was really interesting because we do like say these things in a vacuum, like, oh, well, not us, but people do say things like, oh, babyfying themselves and infantilizing themselves, and I think that's turned into like a discourse around prettiness as well.
I actually think it's two separate things. Like, I feel like it's more that people hate working because working is really hard and people aren't getting paid enough. And because tradwives are popular, like, because of tradwife stuff on the internet, people have been like, why should I have to work? I should just be able to stay at home with my kids. But then it also, I think it basically, what I'm saying is it's just a reflection of how hard everything is right now. Like, people aren't getting paid enough and are having to work shit jobs. People are getting fed, this content that's basically the undercurrent or the dominant thought in it is women were scammed into working when they shouldn't have to. And also women aren't treated well in the workplace in many ways. And I think especially people our age, like in their 30s or whatever, who are now having questions about whether they're having kids or not. And it's like, I know a lot of people, and there's like a lot of discourse around how expensive childcare is. So people are essentially going back to work and wanting to go back to work, but their whole entire wage is going on nursery. So then it's kind of a lose-lose situation. Like, you stay in work and your whole wage is going to nursery, or you remove yourself from the workplace and your childcare is free, but you don't have a career anymore. I think it's just like more of a symptom of us not feeling like we have options or autonomy. So people are going back to like, well, I can gain autonomy by not buying into this capitalist system of work. But that's as far as the thought goes, which is obviously really reductive to what that actually means.
Yeah, and I think the pinning of it, of being like, the angle of being like, I'm too pretty, I don't deserve this, like, I deserve better than this, is kind of coming from the other, like, from the infantilization end.
I think it's less infantilization and more like girl boss runoff.
Yeah, the whole thing just kind of like just gives me the ick, to be honest. Like, I can see why people would be exhausted and saying this stuff, but it's not the reality of the situation. Like, it's kind of like that meme where someone's like, oh, what's your dream job? And they're like, I don't dream of labour. It's like, yeah, true, fair enough. But in the context of stuff, the reality is that a lot of us do have to work, and it's also like, just feels really minging to frame stay-at-home mums as not labour.
Well, oh God, I think it's like, I think it's a bit icky. It is really for sure. Icky. But like the whole, like, I don't dream of labour under like a exploitative system is true. But why are the options? Exploited work or no work? Like, I don't understand exactly. Like, there's all this middle ground where like women have been performing both unpaid and paid labour for ages, and we're just acting like that's not the case. And then the pretty thing, I think like comes from like girl boss runoff of like having to equate your looks to your life and like what type of life you deserve, which is crazy if you think about it. But then also, what, so ugly people should work? Well,
that's what they want, yeah. But I also think that this could be a runoff of like the pretty privilege conversations that people are having. Like, it's just like an unnuanced version of that, where people are like, well, I am pretty, so why am I not getting the privilege? Especially because like, I think with like the meninist sphere and like Andrew Tate and stuff being like, we're men and our privilege is this and this is what we deserve, then if you start being like, oh, my privilege should be this, why am I not getting it, then it opens like a whole weird kettle of fish.
But it's just like all lies as well. Like, I feel like it's such a like concealed internet thing too, where it's like we're seeing a lot. I think it's a reaction to us not actually seeing people's lives on the internet. So we see like the girl getting coffee or like having drinks or whatever, and we don't necessarily see her having like a shit boring job, which she probably does as well. And like, of course there's a lot to say about like how we're exploited under labour conditions, and about childcare, about all of this, about all of that. But then being like, it's fine to rely on a man for your money is kind of crazy, in my opinion.
100%. And I think it's interesting what you said about like, why is the option rely on a man or be exploited by a man in the workplace? When I think, and it's something that we've like explored in past issues, like how do we explore work as something that's a necessity, but also doesn't necessarily have to be something that's wholly negative. Like,
of course, it doesn't have to be negative.
We create like workspaces that are positive. Like, surely that's the reaction we should be having to like such a hard time, rather than being like, oh no, let's revert to the good old days my gran had.
I just also
think she was liking it.
I think that people don't understand like the politics of work as much as they think they do. And it's not that you have to have like read theory, because I haven't, I don't understand it. But being like, oh, I don't dream of labour, it's like, yeah, cool, but like, what the fuck are you actually saying? Like, you're saying nothing by saying that. Yeah, I dream of going on holiday and having nice shoes. Yeah, like, we all don't agree with money at the end of the day, but I'm not going to start like bartering chickens to go to Ibiza. Like,
how many chickens does it cost?
Loads, probably. And like, I don't have to raise chickens either. Like, I'd rather make a magazine for money. I'm going to get outed as like a dirty capitalist.
But it's not like, that's the thing. Like, when girl boss happened, and then it kind of been like any woman who like likes her job or is trying to like shape a career or trying to like make a new like workspace or something like that, like start a new business, is then just lumped under that umbrella. And the reaction to it is to be like, well, what's the opposite of that? Like, what's the right way to work? And then people are like, well, it's not working, is it? And then
I think this fatigue of the workplace is actually just like a misplaced class resentment, like towards the middle and upper classes, because basically the way that girl bosses set us up to fail was that like you could be a girl and do anything basically, but then all the women that were kind of like symbols of girl boss feminism, so the woman that ran the wing, the woman that ran Nasty Girl, like I can think of some in London,
Elizabeth Holmes.
Well, not Elizabeth. I wasn't going to go there. No, I feel like the thing with girl boss feminism was that it like paired like fashionable, fun jobs with making money, and also what I said before in that like because of like the internet origin story, it positioned people as having like really humble beginnings. But the thing is that like unless you have family or like wealth connections, you're not getting like investment in your business. Like, I don't even know what investment means. I do. Sorry. Like, I'm not infantilizing myself, but I don't know everything about it. Like, I was watching Dragon's Den the other day and I was like, wow.
Also, you've
that taught me about dividends.
But like, you've taught yourself with like people, and like even like going to private school, that's where they teach you about this shit.
And it's not even about teaching. It's about people that like, oh, okay, I can like chuck you 10k to invest in your company that then you can use to get this, you can use to get that.
You can just pay me back whatever. Like, I feel like I don't know anyone who could give me that.
No, of course not. Exactly. It's absolutely unreal. But I feel like that's the thing a lot of people thought, oh, and it's the same, and it's always women that are targeted with this as well. For example, like it's a similar thing to women that started small businesses in COVID, or women that start small businesses so they can then work for themselves while they're doing childcare, all of these things. And we've been sold this lie that like you can make it and that there's meritocracy and all of this stuff, when really all girl boss feminism did was like further uplift like the upper middle classes and onwards, and gave them visibility and the visibility to exploit. Because like the girl who started the wing is literally who Money from Girls is based on. It's true.
That's so funny.
And like they're all like people that are anyway. And so I think this whole thing of like I don't dream of working is because people are stuck in jobs that they don't like and have like no opportunities for upwards mobility, because we're not actually living in a society that gives people opportunities if they don't come from the right background.
Well, that's always been the lie of capitalism, isn't it? Like you can just work at it and then you'll gain and then you can just carry on climbing the ladder. And I don't see the difference between capitalism and a fucking pyramid scheme, to be honest.
No, it's the same.
Exactly the same. It's time for our break now. We're back from the break now.
I don't want to say we're back because then people will think I'm bullying you by not letting you say it.
But I said listen guys, whoever says the one thing gets to say the next person says the next bit.
Yeah, and I think also part of this conversation, especially as it like pertains to relationships, which I thought was really interesting, was something that was in the research by our new fellow that was like a clip of Goldie Hawn speaking about like financial independence basically. Let me get my note up. Okay. So I feel like I hadn't thought about how emancipating financial independence is, I guess, well, I think it's just something I've intrinsically known, right? Which is probably the same for like a lot of women our age and younger. Like they see financial independence as like a given, not something that has been fought for, which like obviously is an amazing place to be in terms of like the arc of women's rights. But then I guess that's where it creeps in, that it's like, oh, well, maybe this isn't good though. Do you know what I mean? Because they've never actually been faced with the opposite.
Yeah, it's such like a post-feminist take to be having.
And Goldie Hawn is basically making the point in this, I think she's on The View or something, that the reason why we're able, which is something we've covered on the podcast before, to like, you know, reimagine marriage or like reimagine the heterosexual relationship is because women gained financial independence. Like, that's why that institution is able to change in our minds and like maybe feel a bit more fair, maybe feel a bit more like something that you do for love, not for security, basically. I feel like we have different versions of not being financially independent now as well, because I thought it's so true that about marriage, but I feel like it less applies to marriage and more just applies to relationships. Like if you think about how many people that like stay in relationships maybe that they're not the most happy in because they split the rent with someone, or, you know, like so many of these ways, like it is so difficult to be financially independent now because we are like living through a shit time of the world, but we also take it for granted in a way.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
I think like, yeah, I think this is such a natural reaction, like going back to what you were saying earlier, like to a cost of living crisis, is to be like, what's the way that I can survive this? And idealising the past, like we're in such like a nostalgia era of everyone like wanting to have like what they used to have, and that's kind of like what tradwives have cashed in on big time.
I feel like there's a cognitive dissonance between like people that make these like that would be like, I'm too pretty to work, or like I shouldn't have to do an Excel spreadsheet, or like I shouldn't have to know how to do my banking or anything like that, because they wouldn't like necessarily align themselves with the right. But it is just like really covert propaganda that then leads us down like getting rid of abortion rights, women not being able to have their own paycheck, like women not being able to have their own phones, like all of this. I don't know where I've got phones from there. But you know what I mean? It's a slippery slope.
But it is women not being allowed to have their own phones, because as soon as you get into things being like, oh, I'd want my guy to provide for me, and then the guy would have the rules of being like, and you see
I
this,
pay for your contract, so
not even paying for the contract, but being like, I've got access to your phone, you're not allowed to be on your phone like around me when we're at dinner, stuff like that, like which just snowballs into like abuse essentially.
I also think that it's so strange that we've like eroded this much in such a small amount of time, because like from watching Real Housewives, you see time and time again like how many women are basically fucked over. Like how many housewives are fucked over because they don't have financial literacy and never gained financial independence. So like now Kyle, who's an original Real Housewives of Beverly Hills, she's separated from Mauricio, and they've been together for like 30 or 40 years or something. And it's the first time she's been in the house by herself, and she doesn't know how to turn the heating on. She doesn't even know how to turn the TV on. She lets him, like for their whole marriage, she let him sign every contract because she was like, I don't want to read it. Like, I trust you, you may as well read it. Like, it's only I don't know if Carl's old enough to be my mum, but I think she is. But it's only like Gen X and like slightly older than us that really, I guess, allowed them to fall into the traps of like emancipation as well, because by all intents and purposes, Kyle Richards is like also a self-made woman in some way. Like, yeah, original Real House of Beverly Hills, she was the kid in Halloween, she was like a child actor, but none of that is actually autonomous to her because she was always sharing everything with her husband. And now that they're getting a divorce, they had no prenup because they got married when they were like 20 or whatever, and she could stand to like not have anything at all and like be left. And like we know so many women, like my mum for example, that get like fucked over in divorces, are left with like no money and kids and all of these things. And it's just like strange that we don't think that could happen to us as well.
Well, people see it as like an exchange of like a trade-off, isn't it? Like they have to be such a good wife to like earn that money of the financial off their husband.
What do you mean?
Like they don't see it happening to them because they see it as transactional. They're like, I'd be such a good wife, I'd be doing all the cleaning and stuff, and I'd be raising the kids and stuff, and they just don't connect the dots that could still happen. Like your husband could still leave you even if you're doing all that stuff.
Yeah, as if they give a fuck. Like, that's just baseline for them.
Exactly, that's baseline of what they want from a woman. And if you think that you're the only one that would be doing it for them, then...
I also think it's such a lie to be like, oh, I'd rather stay at home and clean my kids' shitty arse all day than just work.
Well, I think even just not, like...
I mean, obviously, lots of people love doing that because they have kids. But, like, being a housewife is not fun. Like, cleaning isn't fun.
It's literally, like...
Famously not fun.
It's literally a job that so many people, outsource. And if you can't outsource, doing it yourself is shit. Like, I don't know anyone who loves cleaning apart from... people
Stacey
who love
Solomon.
cleaning. Apart from the people who love cleaning. But, like, it just makes me think of, like, how... Like... It just feels like a psyop to me because I'm like, we're phrasing, like in the 70s and stuff, there was like literally like a movement to have wages for housewives because it wasn't taken seriously as labour.
Wait, actual housewives, not Real Housewives of Beverly Hills.
No, actual housewives. Like make it part of the thing where they got a wage, like were employed not necessarily by their husband, maybe by the government. Like I don't really know the ins and outs of the movement, sorry. But... Like, it was literally being like, we need to take this labour seriously, we need to see it as a job. And then now it just feels like the inverse of that is happening, where people are like, I don't want a job, I want to be a housewife.
Yeah, and that being a housewife will be like making bread and like wearing nice dresses and walking around like the hills.
I guess the issue is that for women, a lot of women especially, they've had to do both. Like, I've had to be a housewife and have, like, an unfair balance of, like, doing all the cleaning, still having to do all the cooking, still having to do all the laundry, and have a full-time job in their relationship. Like, it's such, like, an imbalance of labour. Like, one of the articles in the research was a guy complaining, being like, oh, I feel really bad because I told my wife that she could be a housewife and she doesn't want to work. It's in the iPaper, the writers Kenny Mamarella de Cruz, and he wrote, like, my wife doesn't want to work even though our kids are at school. And he says, like, I brought it up the other day and she turned the conversation around about the mental load she carries. She doesn't see the financial load I'm carrying. And I was just like, you're not seeing
Yeah.
like the load, the work that she's doing is valid. And it's so disappointing to see women turn around and also just not see that work as valid either.
Yeah, I think it's just also depressing that it like all come... Like, A, as it stands, all of our point, that's true. But, like, B, it's annoying that the conversation even goes to this place, as you said, rather than having to reform the workplace and reform wage structures, universal basic income, all of these things that would actually allow for a nice life. Like, we all just think that the answer is some loophole that we've already done somehow, when obviously it isn't, which goes back to what you were saying at the beginning.
Yeah, I think it's just, like, this post-feminism thing being, like, point of view of being like, well, we've earned everything, so, like, and it's still not right, so, like, maybe we should go back to the other days where at least like we had a house over our heads and we weren't paying for it ourselves.
Which is a right-wing dog whistle.
Literally a right-wing dog whistle, and also just so unimaginative. Like, why can't you think of like the next thing to do? Like, okay, that hasn't worked. Being a housewife hasn't worked. Being a capitalist hasn't worked. What's the third thing? Instead of being like, oh, let's like flip-flop between them two for the rest of my life. And also on the side, I'm gonna sell some macrame. And that's my goal in life.
I feel like it's similar to the conversation though. Like, have you seen that tweet? Like, it's kind of similar to the millennial nostalgia podcast we did a few weeks ago, in that like there's that tweet that being like, oh, I wish I lived in New York in 2006. Like, how did people do that and just have a bar job and could still have coffee with their mates or whatever? And that's the thing, like, you used to be able to work and still have a life because the cost of living was not so high. Like, you used to be able to have a decent life and not work full time, but that's just not possible anymore. But the people at fault are the people with power, like governments and people at the head of these corporations, people that are like putting like Donald Trump putting tariffs on things that are making our lives more expensive, not the fact that you have a job at all.
Yeah, exactly. It's such like a misappropriated anger, and like also just like a wistful thinking of being like, well, what was different about back then? It's just like, well, capitalism has advanced exponentially in 15 years. Like, it's gotten crazy. It's gotten out of hand. Even like, what is it, 19 years since 2006?
I don't know. I'm not that bright on that.
Well, just the state of the world, I guess.
Yeah, I guess just like cost of, like, everything is more expensive, and like buying a home ownership, all of these things, everyone knows these are out of reach, but yeah.
Yeah, and back in the day it used to be like, oh, a house would be like 3 times your income for the year. And now it's like
20
20
million
times. Like, it's just so unachievable unless you're already in the position where you have that money to like be given or like to invest. And the thing is, most of our listeners and our peers we don't come from those backgrounds.
Well,
and even these girls on TikTok, like, they're just young women who are like, well, it just seems so bleak going forward, so like, yeah, I would like prefer to have the stability of someone looking after me. But then that turns back into like self-infantilization.
Well, it's not self-infantilization, it's just infantilization.
Well, it's self-infantilization if you dream of being looked after rather than being able to look after yourself.
I guess. But I'd say it's just infantilization.
Well, the whole generation's been infantilized. It's like that when we were talking about like the frontal lobe forming and people not being able to like being forced to like house share for years and years and years when it never used to be the case.
Yeah, that's true. Tell the listeners about the carrot TikTok.
Oh, it's so good. So there's a TikTok where it's a woman like making a perfect spring floral arrangement, and she's like hollowing out carrots and then putting them in a vase and then putting flowers inside the centre of the hollows of the carrots. And then this guy who's called Sean on the right, I wonder what he thinks, has gone, feminism forced women to go to work instead of staying home and making beautiful things like this.
Beautiful things like a hollowed out carrot.
Yeah, and then Mariella, who's called PFAF-phobic, said feminism forced women to work instead of putting flowers inside of carrots. And I think it just like dumbs it down. Like, that's like the thing, like they'll dumb down ideologies to like these really like silly little things, being like, oh, I wish that like I was spending my day just like making flower arrangements, but you wouldn't be spending your day making flower arrangements.
No, you'd
unless
be
you were,
doing
like,
a million things
in the higher upper class where you were paying people, exploiting people to do all the other shit for you.
I mean, surely that's all rage bait. Like, it's like the 30-second crafts.
Well, no, I think this woman's just probably like an influencer who's like, oh, what can I do for my content today? My content's house content, so I'm going to make a beautiful floral arrangement. It's been picked up by the right because they're like, oh, I can rage bait this on Twitter. I've got a blue tick. I'll get paid 100 quid for this tweet. And then everyone's picking up on it and quote tweeting and adding to the conversation. Whereas like, if you just let these people just say what like their own fucking shite without engaging with it.
But so many of the original tradwives were rage baiters, including Nara Smith.
Well,
she is.
I don't know if the carrots are specific from the Nara
I'm just
Smith
saying,
universe.
it's either rage bait or fetish.
Do you think?
Yeah.
I think there's some influences left that
No, I don't think so. You're not doing that with an earnest heart.
What, hollowing a carrot?
No way. It's not happening. There's no way.
There's something deeply dark about you if you've got the time to hollow a carrot out.
I thought Ashley made a good point as well, where she said this also shouldn't be the only fault of men. Be the fault of men being unfaithful, which is the reason that you'd like lose them. It's like she said, husbands also die, they get sick, they become disabled, they lose their jobs. There are many ways the man you've made a life with is no longer able or willing to financially support you or your family, which is really true as well. And it's not just the thing of like, oh, if your husband died, you get everything straight away. Because, yeah, if you're not financially literate, you're not going to understand how to do that, or like how long wills take, or how long this takes, or how long that takes. And yeah, it's just stupid not to have your own money.
Yeah, it's just...
Like, you can not dream of labour, but realise that, like, that coffee that you do dream of is £4, probably 6 these days.
Definitely 6 these days. For you messes, probably more like 8. Yeah, I thought that was a really good point, but then it ties back into the, like, transactional thing of it, where women are like, well, I just get another man.
Yeah, and I
where's
think,
the love
like...
gone?
Oh, well... But I think that's how a lot of women do see their lives, which is just, like, not great.
Yeah, it's depressing.
And also that's out of, what's the word? You have to do it, not because you necessarily want to do it. Like, for some women, that is the only choice they have.
Getting another guy.
Well, yeah, like, if you've been married 40 years and something happens, like, you're in your late 50s or 60s, like, the workforce isn't exactly welcoming to you. What are your options at that point? Like, the problem is women, or still, despite the illusion of women having freedom, we still have too little choice.
Well, exactly. There's no winning in this game, and that's why we need to press forward with making...
Press forward
with making options.
Like you're in the army. Okay, and with that, we are finished.
Thank you,
We're finished.
We're over no more podcasts.
For this week.
We solved it all.
Yeah. Thanks, everyone. Back to work. Thank you, Gina, for co-hosting.
Thank you, Ione.
Thank you, Sakia, for the research, and Charlotte for the sound tech.
Thank you, Olivia, for editing. Thank you for listening, and thank you to our members for subscribing.
For helping us not have to be unfinancially independent.
Thank you for adding to our idealised work situation.
We will see you next week.
Bye.
Bye.